And today is the 24th of July. It's a Monday. It's 8:45 in the morning, and today's going to be a monster day. We're at 84 degrees. Humidity is 68, 67, which is typical. And we're probably going to look at 102 degrees today with a low of 77. So it's going to be a bad day. Not a nice day. Um, let's start with some praise and then we'll move on, okay? There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 For those of you that do spiritual warfare, would you please go after those that are doing this to my wife and me, trying to do spells, enchantments, witchcraft, sorcery, work plots against us, deceive us, and stuff like that. Would you please go after that? Because there's some efforts going on now. Okay, so I appreciate it if you do that. And I'd also appreciate it if you keep it up for a while. But I mean, go to the max on that. Okay? And the more people that's coming from at these people, the more the unclean spirits will be quicker to just ignore them and move on. Okay? And go after the unclean spirits, of course, to get them to cease and desist these works against me and my wife. And just, like I say, go after the max. Feel free to tell the Lord that they should reap what they sow, and He would curse those that curse us, and they're attempting to curse us, so do it to them. You can do all this, okay? You're not cursing them, you're asking Jehovah to do it based on Scripture, okay? And that's not you cursing them, okay? And if it's against His will, it won't happen. So I'm going to have to go pick up the little dogs in a little bit. They're still outside. I want to give them more time out there. They just went out about 7, so they've been out about an hour and 45 minutes. I hope I can get another 45 minutes or an hour out there with them. So they have some time out. Then I bring them in the house, and they're stuck in the house. I take them out, usually 2 times in the afternoon for a potty run, but it's so hot out there. You're talking 4 or 5 minutes and then back in the house, or they'll start panting. They're cool from the air conditioning, and they go out there and they don't know any better, and they start laying in the sun. Beulah does it too, and sunbathing in the heat, And then if you let them do it long enough, they start, So they don't understand the concept of air conditioning because it's not naturally occurring. But they have a concept that it's cooler in the house than out there. Now Chief knows air conditioning. In our other house, he used to look up at me and like begging when it got hot. He was panting for me to put the thing on. And when I put it on, he knew it. He knew it was on. And as soon as I turned it on, he stopped trying to solicit me to do it. Yafa, I never got that reaction from. I'm trying to beef Yafa's weight up. She had a real bad run with these ticks, and I think the ticks are all gone. I would probably go 99%. I checked her over. I don't see any there. And I'm pretty sure they're gone with Chief too. And I don't see any fleas or anything. So the pill they took is probably working combined with the bathing we gave, but we probably should give them another bath. I may send it to the groomer. I'll let the groomer work on it. I don't know. She's got scabs where some of these pestilence bugs were, little scabs, and that's probably causing the very small amount of itching that I see. Okay, so please pray for me and my wife, Rivka, Moshe and Rivka, to be happy, healthy, and whole, and cheerful, and pray for us to have peace, safety, protection, and joy, and pray for our animals and pets to be happy, healthy, and whole, and pray for our finances as well. And there's a substantial amount of intelligent attacks aimed at us. Not the standard, this is subtle, deep seated, and been planted a long time. Okay, so it'll end. We always win. When you fight him in the flesh, everything gets screwed up. When you fight him in the spirit, you win. That's how it works. And also prayer would be good. Prayer for me and my wife. I appreciate it. I think I see how the attack was working. And it was not overly brilliant, but it was decent. And I didn't give it I gave it some attention, but not enough. And it keeps bouncing back, but now we're going to hit it with a 50-pound sledgehammer, and it's not going to come back anymore. And I appreciate your support. Do we have any prayer requests today? Let us see, other than the one I just burdened you with. Satan and the unclean spirits have a motive of, giving problems to me and shutting this thing down that I do. It's not working. Satan's stuff doesn't work. Okay. We have a prayer request for LN, Lima Normandy, LN, Lima Normandy. I believe we did this, but let's do it again because this is a hard situation. Needs a place to live and a good job. Okay? LN, Lima Normandy needs a good job and a place to live. Homeless right now, living in a car. Not a good thing. Okay. So we got that covered. And let me check the live stream. Make sure we're doing okay, which we seem to be doing okay. So get that covered. And let me check and we've been seeing the somehow the chat erasing. Several times in the last 10 days, quite a few times really, and we seem to have it stopped, that spiritual warfare. I'm going to shut this. Okay, so that's just another manifestation of the attacks, okay? Hold on a second, that's my supermarket. And I'm getting an order earlier today, and if I don't, they give you shorts and substitutions, and if you don't respond to it, then they start calling on the phone and interrupting. So it's easier to just do this, which just usually takes a few seconds. Oh. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay. No. This is mineral water they bring in from the country of Georgia, which is by Russia, right? And it's not cheap, but it's loaded with minerals, and I believe that gives you electrolytes. So I try to buy a few bottles every week and drink it, so I don't have to drink Gatorade, which has the sugars in it. But for the patches that I'm using, you need the electrolytes. You got to make sure, and also the heat. It's a good idea to have electrolytes. So I usually the Gatorade or that. So they were out of that, and they wanted to give me San Pellegrino water for even more money, which is a tasty water, but forget it. I'm not going to do it. It doesn't have any real benefit. So I'm not going that route. And then I would buy some of these coffees that come in like a jar container that are like lattes or cappuccinos or fancy coffee, pre-made, and you put them in the fridge and you can have an iced coffee. So I ordered some of those, and they were out of the ones I ordered, and then they substituted another one that was cheaper. So I went, hey, that sounds good, you know? So that was a good deal. Hang on a minute. I want to put my email. It's nice having an air conditioner. Everything's nice and quiet in here. Okay, I pinned offering information up at the top of the chat. And I also put my email address up in the chat, and it's highlighted in yellow, as is the offering information, and pinned at the top. They can't take the pinned messages down at the top, apparently. So it's probably not YouTube doing it, because if YouTube was doing it, they could probably get the pinned messages off if they wanted to. So I think it's some hacker dweeb that has some kind of an app or something that lets them do this. So spiritual warfare is the answer. The only real reason they would want to attack this website is their SBOTs, you know, of some way, shape, or form. So that's what we'll do. Keep the spiritual warfare going. Now, if you want to learn more about spiritual warfare and you don't know, I have a Telegram site that's just loaded with spiritual warfare. And just email me and I'll give it to you. I'll give you the invite. You need an invite to get into it, so I'll send you the invite if you ask me. Also, my website has spiritual warfare on it also. The website is just Bible studies, it's nothing else. I figure it's got about 400 pages of Bible studies. And the address is moishehacom.com, and you can see at the very top of the page the URL, moishehacom.com. Okay? And I have Twitter if you're interested in news. It's especially useful for wars and riots and civil wars and stuff like that, the way I have it set up. And this is the name of the Twitter account. It's under the circle picture. Okay? It's right there. So what's going on in Israel is the vote for this reasonableness clause in the law, which will stop the High Court from preventing actions of the Knesset, not laws, actions. So if the Knesset, the Parliament of Israel, the Congress of Israel, embarks on taking action in a certain regard, they can say it's not reasonable and strike the action down. It has no relevance compared to regarding laws. They can't strike a law down by saying it's not reasonable, okay? To strike a law down, they have to say it violates our basic laws, which is like something like the Constitution, but not as good. So this is not designed to stop Netanyahu from passing laws and immunizing himself from any criminal or civil prosecution or cases regarding actions he did while he was a prime minister. That's the French law, as they call it, and he has yet to pass that, but he has, as far as we can tell, every intention of doing so. This is designed to allow them to reinstate Aryeh Deri as the head of the health minister, as the head of the health department, and the head of the, called Mishrat Hapanim, which is the Ministry of the Interior, which controls immigration. So, Aryeh Deri had been convicted either 2 or 3 times for corruption with the Ministry of the Interior, Mishrat Hapanim, immigration, and Netanyahu put him in a 3rd time, and or maybe it's the 4th time, I don't know, in the same place where he repeatedly gets convicted. And Aryeh Deri, in his last conviction, he'd been to jail already, served in one case over 2 years in jail, for corruption with immigration. Now, what he was doing, I could dig it up, I never did. So what he's doing is ridiculous. So the court is told Netanyahu to get Aryeh Deri removed. Aryeh Deri, in his last case, signed a deal with the prosecutor for a plea guilty, no prison time, but he stipulated he would not hold public office. And then he shows up holding 2 high-powered public offices as a minister of the health department and a minister of the Department of the Interior. So they made Netanyahu reverse it. So the party that Aryeh Deri is in is an ultra-Orthodox thing called Shas, S-H-A-S in English. And they really want Aryeh Deri back. Now, we're told as a rumor only that he's still running the health and the Ministry of the Interior through offices outside the government. They're having people that are in charge come visit him and he dictates to them. So we don't know, I don't know how verified that is or isn't, but if it was true, I'm not so sure why he would be so infatuated with getting back in power. But I believe the Shas party stipulated to Netanyahu that they need Aryeh Deri back or they will not stay in the coalition. So these ultra-Orthodox keep badgering Netanyahu and telling him that you need to do this or we're leaving the coalition. If they leave the coalition, then Netanyahu will not have 61 vote majority. Benny Gantz and or Yair Lapid, probably together, will do a vote of no confidence against him, call for such a vote. He will not come up with the required 61 votes. Then they will schedule new elections. However, there is a provision, and I'm hazy on when you could use this or not, where, okay, Netanyahu lost this coalition. Before they go to new votes, I believe the president, Herzog, is the one to do this. He addresses the Knesset and says, could anybody here raise a coalition? I'll give you 2 weeks. I think he could even give them up to 30 days. But I think the first cut is 2 weeks. If there's some encouraging signs, he can extend it. Say, go, I saw this happen once, go ahead and form a coalition, show me. And Yair Lapid and Benny Gantz would most likely be able to form a coalition right then and there. Based on what the polls are saying and how bad Netanyahu looks right now, I'd say they'll come in strong. I would think they would probably come in with 64, 65 seats. Yair Lapid will go with Benny Gantz, they're left wing. Then Yair Lapid and Benny Gantz are not on the left side of center, they're left wing. Are they left? No, they're just left. Okay? Now, in Israel, the left wing will be aggressive militaristically. They understand the problem and the psyche or the psychological profile of our enemies that attack us, and they will be protective and aggressive, like Netanyahu. Netanyahu, in reality, is a left winger, okay? But he's just going through the motions of being a right winger because he wants to keep this government of his going and whittle down the power of the courts slowly but steadily, culminating in that French law where he can't be prosecuted. But the problem is that makes him a dictator. He's the chairman of the Likud party, which is normally considered the biggest party in Israel. Although Benny Gantz may be overtaking them, I don't know yet. But they're pretty darn big, and he's the chairman of that party. So he is the executive branch as the prime minister. That's like the president in America. And he controls, to an overwhelming extent, the legislative branch of the government. And then he eliminates the Supreme Court, the judicial branch, by taking the power away. So that's why they say it leaves him as a dictator. He runs the only two branches of the democracy that are viable. So that gives him dictator-type powers. And people are very scared because the ultra-Orthodox are going to use this power like they already have, creating a welfare class. They're a welfare class. And they're getting more and more money from the government, and they want draft exemptions for the young boys. And eventually they'll have us support everybody in the government. And, it's a joke. They're not serious people. I mean, they're crackpots. They don't have any place in government. It's ridiculous. So, Ben Gvir and Smotrich are playing the same game with Netanyahu. Do what we want, and we won't leave the coalition. If you don't do it, we'll leave the coalition. And that means Netanyahu has a very high probability of going to jail. Because if he's not a seated prime minister, the court's probably not going to buy into his wanting to take a few more years of trial on this case. So they could accelerate it, and there's a high probability they'll put him in jail because the courts are afraid of him, and they have an opportunity to crush him and put him in jail. They'll take it. But again, it looks like he's guilty too. When the police catch a burglar, usually they get him for a burglary, or maybe they find goods from another burglary. But this character could be committing 2 or 3 burglaries a week for years, and instead of catching him for 60 or 70 burglaries, they get him for 1. Same with a car thief; they catch him with 1 car. So it could be the same with Netanyahu. I said could be, I don't know, but I suspect it could be that there was many cases that just didn't come up. We're being told that the media is soft peddling what's happening with the military, with people dropping out of reserve service because of Netanyahu's judicial reform. And they're telling us it's to very, very dangerous levels. Gallant, the defense minister, who's Netanyahu's boy, has told Netanyahu to delay the vote on this reasonableness clause because it's so dangerous to Israel, and the military could be divided and stay that way for a long time. Now, last night, depending which media source you read, there was between 100,000 and 300,000 protesters on both sides. One group of equal size pro Netanyahu, pro judicial reform, and the other anti Netanyahu and against judicial reform. And there's a lot of people against this Netanyahu judicial reform for different reasons. They may start fighting each other, they may not. So today's a critical day. I believe the protesters are going to start to become very aggressive if Netanyahu doesn't. If he pushes this thing through, very aggressive would be something like what you see in France and other countries. Like what? Well, like burning vehicles, blocking roads, continually blocking roads. In France, they were putting bricks with mortar on the roads, quick drying mortar. So if they could block traffic maybe for an hour, the mortar dries, and then the government has to figure out how they're going to take this mortar wall down. They can't just take a big truck with a big bumper and ram it because it'll rip up the concrete of the road. So they got to take it apart. I don't know what they do. Use a jackhammer. I don't know what they would. Probably a sledge, and then I don't know. I really don't know what they do to get rid of it, but it's a pain in the neck for them. So they're going to get pretty heavy duty. The Histadrut Union with 832,000 members is peeved because they submitted a plan to Netanyahu to make compromise, and the Gantz, Lapid side rejected that plan because it was too much for them, and Netanyahu side rejected it because it wasn't enough. So they're not real happy, but what are they going to do? Chances are they might be a little mad at Yair Lapid and Gantz, but I think they'll do what they did the last time, which is call a strike. And people that work for the banks, for the government, for the airport, for supermarkets, for medical facilities, and so forth are all in this union. They went on strike for a couple hours, just scared the daylights out of Netanyahu when he backed off. Well, his backing off didn't do any good because here we are again. So the protesters, I think, are aware of the fact that the backing off and delays don't do any good because it just means he's going to go do it again. They got to get rid of Netanyahu. Okay? And it's common knowledge and dialogue amongst many Israelis now that Netanyahu is just doing this to stay out of prison. They don't understand the spiritual ramifications, they don't understand any of that, but they do understand he's doing it to get out of jail. And they don't like it. And what are they doing about it? Well, they're not doing much. Except the protesters are really making it clearer that they're going to intend to shut Israel down. Now, the pro-Netanyahu people are going to come out and say, we don't want our country shut down. We want our country to continue. We like this. See, it could go into conflict amongst each other. God, let me explain this to you. God is not going to allow this government to continue. This government is equivalent to King Saul. Instead of a king, they're going for a prime minister. They want people to run Israel. It's worse than King Saul, in a way. They want people to run Israel, and they want to control these running people. So basically, the people want to run themselves. They don't want God to run Israel. And the only true Israel is going to be with God running Israel through the judges, which are prophets, which are the two witnesses. There's no other prophets coming up. So they don't know that, what I just told you. They don't know that, although it's in the Bible, they don't understand that. So it's never going to work, and it's reached the time where it's time. And I think this is not the time of Zechariah 12, nor Gog and Magog, nor the Great Tribulation. It's the time of Ezekiel 34, where the yoke, where the bad shepherds of Israel are cut off. Okay? And when you see the next battle, which is Zechariah 12, the judges of Israel are in place. The King James calls them governors. They're judges. And I think we're there. And I think that we may very well see the two witnesses begin to work openly in Israel to fix things. I don't see anything in the scriptures where God's going to just let Israel break up and the neighbors, Syria and Lebanon and Gaza and Jordan and whatever, annihilate us, run us out of the land, kill us, throw us in camps, ovens, whatever. No. I don't find that in the scripture at all. I just don't. So we're headed into redemption. But at the same year of redemption, there's year of recompenses on the leaders. Now, I think what this is going to do is it's going to be combined with a lot of wars, which is found in Jeremiah 30:11, where the Lord says he'll annihilate the nations that he dispersed the Jews into, and this is mixed in with the birth pangs. So I think you'll see the China-Taiwan, China-Japan, North and South Korea thing ignite in close proximity to what's going to happen in Israel, as well as NATO and Russia. It appears for real that drones were launched into Moscow, and the target was the Ministry of Defense. I don't know how successful it was. I don't have it 100% confirmed, but I would say I'm 65% confirmed it really happened yesterday. Now, that will make the people of Moscow very scared, and they will be realizing that Putin overstated the weapons that Russia has, because they can't defend against the drone. And they will doubt Putin, and they will be getting scared of Putin and thinking Putin may thrust them into destruction. But I don't think the people have the ability to stand up against Putin or do anything. Okay? So I don't think they're going to be too quick or too easy to overthrow Putin. Putin will machine gun him in the street before that happens. Okay? Now, Putin may not want to fight NATO right now because he's going to be launching the BRICS thing in August, next month. And there's, depending who you read, there's 40 or 50 countries that want to join. Many or most of them he'll put in next month. And he's also having a wire transfer system with the BRICS Development Bank, and I guess that's where the gold will be. I don't know where they're going to put the gold to guarantee this gold-backed trading currency, but they better make provisions to do it somewhere. And I don't know how many countries are going to be willing to put their gold into the BRICS Development Bank. Okay, they've been deleting our chat again. Spiritual warfare. Hang on a minute, I'm going to be busy for a second with that. Okay, let me put my email address back in. And I laid a nice dose on spiritual warfare there. You can do the same. I don't believe this is coming from hold on. Oh, they got rid of the pinning the message in the chat. Remember I mentioned that, and now they did it. That was a test. So I'm wondering if it is YouTube doing it. I don't know. No, the message is still pinned in the chat. No. So it's probably just some hacker dweeb. I'll just keep putting it back in. I don't think we'll see this dweeb here again for quite a while. But we can always up the spiritual warfare. And let me change things here for a minute. Okay, I put it on all messages. Yeah, I don't talk to that many people. This could just be a new thing going around that they're just harassing people with. I don't see the value of YouTube doing it. I don't think they would bother. And if they were doing it, they would delete the pin message. With this one, apparently can't. So, whatever. Petty harassment. Okay, so, we're at critical mass, and the vote for this bill needs 2 votes. It needs a second and third vote, which they intend to do today, or Netanyahu was planning on. So we don't know if he's going to postpone it or do it, but we'll see. There's a chance he'll postpone it. Is there a chance he'll drop it and say we're not going to do this at all? I would say 0. Postponing it, the protesters see through that. It's just saying instead of passing it in July, you'll pass it in September or October. That's not good. We don't want it ever passed. Left-wingers are of the belief that if you bear down on the Palestinians, it's going to cause a war. They don't want a war. They're fearful of God. The right-wingers in Israel don't really fear the Lord, nor do the left-wingers. Very few people actually do fear the Lord in Israel. So, there you have it. And we'll just have to see what happens today. If it does pass, they do the second and third vote, they'll start shutting the country down. Ultimately, it'll turn to destruction of government buildings and property, I believe. And the military will be divided, and Israel may get attacked as a result of this. Now, in my opinion, Netanyahu does not care at all about anything that happens, okay? He'll wreck the country. Because if the country's destroyed, in other words, let's say in his, it's not going to happen, but in his mind, he may think there won't be an Israel anymore. Well, he's who else could prosecute him? America, the UK, they won't prosecute him. For what? They don't have authority over what he did. They can't do anything to him. So he doesn't. He gets out of jail, and there's no more prime minister. But it's better to be a no more prime minister walking around in some other country, which he may or may not have hidden wealth that he could access if there's no more Israel. People in Israel speak of him having Panama bank accounts, but do they know that? I don't think they know that. It's speculative, but that's the rumors, whatever that's worth, which could be very little or it could be true. I have no idea. So, it's better to be walking around free in another country and there's no more Israel than to save Israel and then wind up dying in jail in Israel. That's how he sees it. These ingrates don't appreciate the great Netanyahu. They want to put me in jail. I'm great. I have a right to be corrupt. I'm the great one. This is what you get with him. This is what you get. So that's where he's at, and we got to wait and see what happens. We don't know. Oh, it's still sitting up in the chat, I think. Let's see. Let me make sure. It didn't come in. Let me try it the other way. Yeah, it's still up there. China's becoming, in my opinion, more aggressive towards Taiwan. Naval ships surrounding, aircraft flying over. Now they have China's becoming more aggressive. They have ferry boats that have been converted to troop transport. Mind you, it's just about a 100-mile trip, maybe slightly more than 100 miles to go from mainland China to Taiwan and land. I guess it would depend on what part of Taiwan you want to land on, too. So they've converted a lot of these ferry boats into troop transports because, you're talking probably at most a 6-hour ride. So all you have to do is put the troops on, let them take their backpacks off, lay their rifles down and sit down on the deck or have seats for them or something like that. You don't really even need to feed them a meal, and they might even get there in 4 hours. The ferry may actually run at 25 miles an hour, or it may run at 20 or 15. It's probably going to be around 4 to 5 hours. So, you don't have to have a kitchen. You don't have to have bunks for them to sleep on. You don't have to have much of anything except a place for them to sit down. And you may want to have, you'd have to have bathrooms, and you may want to give them drinks or some snacks or something like that. But they run them over and then they land them. So that's a very easy thing for them to do. And now they're practicing using that. And they're practicing using longer range missiles on Taiwan. So they probably is thinking they could attack Taiwan from land, and Taiwan wouldn't be able to reach that far with the missiles they have and counterattack. Or they can put the missiles on boats and stay out of the range of Taiwan's missiles that way, but I don't think you're going to get long-range missiles operating worth a hoot on a boat. So I think they're trying to do it from land. I have to check the temperature and make sure the dogs are still okay out there. Give me a minute here. They're all right now, but you know, I should bring them in. It's 88 degrees. That's pretty uncomfortable. So let me take a couple of minutes, not long, 2, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I'll bring the dogs in and we'll discuss Ukraine and China and Taiwan. All right, guys. No going potty in the house. Hey, be good. Yaffa. Be good. Be good. Whoa. Tripped on the water bottle. Okay. They were actually okay in their area. It's so shaded. It was probably like 10 degrees cooler, but at least they're in. It's going to go over, well, what's the latest? Pretty scary. Let's see. Well, 101 probably. Yeah, I don't like leaving them out there in the heat. That's, yeah, I'm not going to do that to them. Shorten their lifespan anyway. So China is practicing a multitude of different methods to attack Taiwan. And I have a feeling that they're actually going to use all of them in combination. And they're banking on Biden not being able to do anything about it in time. Once they land a substantial amount of troops, like 100 or 200,000 on Taiwan, it's likely to take years to get them out, if ever. Like Russia and inside Ukraine. It might take years to get them out. And they know that. There's no substantial naval presence out there. To have a substantial naval presence against China, which has a very big navy. Let's compare navies, okay? So let's go to global firepower and look at the size of China's navy. I don't like Wikipedia for military strengths. I think it's junk. I like global firepower. All right, so China is not that powerful, as you'll see, surprisingly. Um, they've got 2 million active military and 500,000 reserve and 625,000 paramilitary. So basically, you'd say they got about 2 million active and about 1 million reserve, which isn't so big. They have basically 1,200 fighters, 1199. That's a lot, but how good are they? Well, in any event, it's still a lot. They only have 4 tankers for refueling, so they're not set up to deal with this at long distances. But they probably don't see themselves doing long distance attacks. But if they try to fight with America, they don't have they might have long range bombers that could reach America without fuel, but I don't know how the heck they're going to get home. Okay, China may not care. You're dealing with China, They got 5,000 tanks with 4,950, which is not that much. Self-propelled artillery, 2,795. That's a lot. Towed artillery, 1,434. That's substantial. Rocket launchers. They go on a truck, and they got basically some pod of rockets, maybe 8 or 10 or 12, and they're usually small rockets. 3,145. That's a very substantial amount. Okay. Now their navy is 2 aircraft carriers, which is a lot these days. That's like France and the UK. 3 helicopter carriers. Those are those small aircraft carriers. America has them, and they can carry 2,500 Expeditionary Force Marines. 50 destroyers, which is substantial. 43 frigates. 72 corvettes. 78 submarines, 150 patrol vessels, 36 mine warfare vessels. Guys, that's a serious navy. Now we'll look at the United States. Again, global firepower. The United States has roughly 1.4 million active and 442,000 reserve, so they're almost at 2 million total, 1.9 million roughly. Now, for air power, we have 13,300 aircraft. Now, going back to China, well, let's just work on the Navy today, but there's way more than what China has. We have 1,914 fighters, which is not a lot more than what China has at all. And then we have 568 tankers. That means we're loaded for, the United States is loaded for bear for refueling planes at great distances. 5,584 helicopters, 983 attack helicopters. So the United States has a very large amount of aircraft, okay? 5,500 tanks, which is probably comparable to China. 1,000 self-propelled artillery, which isn't that great. 1,339 towed artillery, pretty similar. 1,716 missile launchers, again pretty similar. Now naval vessels, 11 aircraft carriers, and 9 helicopter carriers, way ahead of the pack over here, way ahead of the curve. 92 destroyers, a lot more than China. 22 corvettes, I think they have more. 68 submarines, about a tie. 10 patrol vessels, which isn't much, and 9 mine warfare. So, you know, the naval vessels that count in America, let's say the corvettes, 22, and 92 destroyers, that's 114 boats, naval boats. Now China, we'll go back in there. I passed it. 50 destroyers, frigates, that's 93. Corvettes is 160, and they have about the same amount of submarines but more patrol vessels. So the Chinese Navy is larger than America's. Okay? Let's remember that. Now let's look at airplanes. If I can get this to manipulate anymore, it doesn't want to. I think I know how to fix that. Well, the United States dominates in the airplanes. So, the United States is not able to move. To take China on, they would probably want to have 3 aircraft carrier groups. When they fought Saddam Hussein, they deployed 4 or even 5. They had a lot. But I would say minimally, if they were going to depend on these aircraft carriers, they would put 3 there, which would be about 250 planes they could attack with. okay, plus some tankers and AWACS and stuff, right? So that would be a substantial amount of planes, and they would send probably 8 support vessels with each uh, boat, which would be destroyers and missile cruisers. And they probably, if they were sending 3 aircraft carriers, probably about 6 or 8 submarines over there to protect these fleets. Now, what would happen is they would lose aircraft carriers, and they would lose destroyers, and the Chinese would lose a lot of boats too. So the United States doesn't seem to be headed in this direction. They usually keep 1 aircraft carrier hanging around over there, but that could be more than to guard Taiwan. It could be to protect South Korea, where they have a big base of 28,000 soldiers, and protect Japan. They could put the aircraft carrier near the coast and use their planes to stop incoming bombers and stuff like that, stop incoming ships and things like this. They don't want to suffer from swarm attacks, which China would be more than capable of delivering, which would end their aircraft carriers. What do I mean? Send 75 drones at the same time on an aircraft carrier. All you need is 2 or 3 to get through, and the drones, the suicide drones, have small amount of explosives, but 1 may not do the ship in. It may disable the ship temporarily, but 2 would be much better chance of having the ship not be combat ready, and 3 would probably be curtains for any combat readiness for that ship. And if they got 8 or 9 in, the ship may burn up and go down, you know. So I don't think they're going to. First of all, the response time to bring a bunch of aircraft carriers into the Pacific region from other regions may be a week or 2 weeks. So there's no time for that. And that's why China's accelerating. They want to throw the kitchen sink at Taiwan. What would that look like? It would look like their long-range missiles would start work first. They would try to knock out any coastal defenses like artillery and mortars, but more so artillery, and missiles. And they would also try to knock out the radar systems. Okay? Probably use a combination of long-range missiles and short-range missiles coming from aircraft and naval vessels. Now they know that they got to work fast. Okay? Doing a barricade around Taiwan with 7 or 9 vessels and just sitting there and trying to cut off air traffic and naval traffic to choke Taiwan out for 2 months is something that I no longer think they're going to do. Because America will not put up with it, and they may send 3 or 4 aircraft carrier groups over there with 30 destroyers or 20 destroyers and 20 or 25 missile carriers or 30, or, you know, they might send 12 submarines over there, you know. I don't think they need anywhere near that. They might just send 3 or 4 submarines over there and start sinking the Chinese ships. That's really all they got to do. So I don't think China has the luxury of sitting around waiting for weeks to see Taiwan cave. And they got to stop America from flying in and coming in with their ships. That means they have to declare war against America. America comes with their ships and they want to bring supplies to Taiwan. Basically, they're just going to tell China to take a long walk on a short pier. And if China fires at them, well, that's a declaration of war. They'll return fire and declare war. I don't think this plan's feasible enough. What the United States has done is put a lot of defense in on land, but that's weak because they got to get that defense from land to Taiwan. So China has to have a race against the clock. Once they got even 40, 50,000 soldiers on Taiwan entrenched, it's a nightmare to get them out. But forget 40, 50. Think in terms of 150, 250,000 troops on Taiwan. Okay? But all they got to do to get this going is get a quick 25,000 in there. These ferry boats probably hold 2,000, 3,000. It's not going to be difficult for them to get to 25,000 and 50,000. Okay? Once the radar goes, the ground-to-air defense systems that China has are worthless. Okay? Because the radar is going to guide it, and there's no radar anymore, so the planes have air superiority. So the Chinese planes will come off aircraft carriers that'll be positioned close but far away, so they'll probably keep them 70, maybe 40, 50 miles away. They'll keep them out of the range of most of the missiles, if not all the missiles that Taiwan has. And how good are Taiwan's missiles against a moving aircraft carrier? I don't know. But they'll be careful, but they'll be close. So when they deploy their aircraft, the planes are going to be right over Taiwan in minutes. Not a lot of warning. Okay? If you're talking about a jet breaking let's say not breaking the sound barrier, it's going, let's say, 600 miles an hour. Okay, which is nothing for fighter jets, right? So that means in a quarter of an hour, in 15 minutes, it goes 150 miles, right? So it's going to go 50 miles in 5 minutes. So if the aircraft carrier is 40 miles away, it's going to be about 4 minutes flight time. So the planes will take off, they'll hover around the aircraft carrier, they'll do formations, form a wing, and come over to Taiwan, and they'll start dropping bombs on the troop embankments near the coastal areas, the artillery, the bunkers. They'll start, hitting all kinds of military equipment, but basically they'll clear themselves an area where they can land troops in Taiwan, and it'll have a lot of coverage with aircraft, and the Navy vessels will move in quick. This could be a matter of a few hours. It could be like 5, 6 hours. So the Americans are still assembling a meeting in the White House with the generals and the admirals and the CIA and the NSA and all of this, the Secretary of State and their allies might be there trying to figure out what they're going to do. And by the time they finish the meeting, if they finish it at all the first day, China's landing troops on Taiwan. Once they get a large amount of troops in Taiwan, they're going to start taking over government buildings. And how are you going to get them out then? The only way you're going to get them out is to fight them on the ground then. They're going to do all the rotten tricks. They're going to move into government buildings. They're going to be next to hospitals, schools, residential areas, all the garbage, And they'll take the factories over, and they'll begin to destroy any aspect of the Taiwan military. They'll ask for their surrender, and they'll keep them alive if they surrender, I believe. And they'll put them in a camp someplace. Maybe they'll build someplace with barbed wire fences and layers. Nothing serious. They won't have any weapons. If they escape, what are they going to do without weapons? They have to get weapons, and they could maybe do that. But now Taiwan's got tanks. They'll start landing tanks, armored personnel carriers, helicopters. They'll take airfields over, put jets on the ground. They're high-speed bombers. There are long-range bombers. You don't really need a long-range bomber, for crying out loud. They're 100, 120 miles away from Taiwan. Any old bomber's going to cover that. You know, a jet bomber's going to go, you know, if it doesn't go supersonic, you know, 500, 600 miles an hour, 600 miles, it's covering 150 miles in 15 minutes. So you got a 10-minute flight, for crying out loud. You know, with a long-range bomber, they're still getting comfortable 10 minutes into the flight. They're just getting ready to, you know, that's nothing, okay? So they'll start bombing the military facilities. They'll kill massive amounts of soldiers. They won't mind killing the soldiers. They are not going to be afraid of taking them as prisoners, because they might ultimately transport them on those ferries out of Taiwan into China and put them in re-education camps or internment camps or work camps or something like that. Just get them off Taiwan as a threat. They'll also get all the intelligence agencies like FBI's and CIA's that Taiwan has. They'll round them up. They may just shoot them. They may not bother with re-education, because these people would be trained on these practices and procedures and told how to survive it and stay sane. So and that, I think, is Taiwan's goal, and I think it's highly attainable. One more time, long-range missiles, softening the target up, short-range missiles from aircraft and naval vessels, you know, coming in, boom, 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 hitting all sorts of targets, trying to take out the air defenses and the radar. And they don't have to get it all at once. They just got to get a corridor. Then they start bombing military targets, soften up an area where they can successfully do a beachhead landing. And this is maybe now you're 8 hours into it, 9 hours into it, maybe less. Those ferries could be launched and could be hovering 40, 50 miles off the coast of Taiwan until they secure an area and they take the missile threats and artillery threats away. So then they only got an hour and a half to land, and then when they land, you know, they're going to be landing tanks and armored personnel carriers, and they're going to have tents, and they're going to have kitchens, and they're going to have all kinds of ammo and mortars and artillery and rocket launchers and radar and all sorts of stuff, okay? All sorts of stuff. And those ferries are going to land what they got, go back, get another load, come back, go back and forth all day, all night, landing. And from one beachhead, they'll have another beachhead, then another beachhead, and so forth. Then they'll set up their own anti-aircraft systems to protect themselves from anybody else's aircraft. And I think this is bound to happen pretty quick. Japan will come to the aid of Taiwan, but what the heck are they going to do? Let's look at Japan's military. That's how you do this. Instead of saying, well, I don't know what Japan's going to do. They're going to come over there and bomb them with sushi. Let's look at Japan's military strength. Again, global firepower. Don't pay attention to Wikipedia. They don't do a good job in this area. Manpower. Okay. We'll give you the whole thing. Japan's military, 309,000 total. That's active duty, reserves, and paramilitary. Not much. Aircraft, 1,451 total planes. Not bad, not bad. But only 217 fighters. That's not a lot. Israel has more than that. And tankers, 8. Not a lot. Attack helicopters, 119. Not a lot. Okay. Tanks, 1,000. Very small. Self-propelled artillery, 238. Small. Towed artillery, 480. Something, but not much. 99 rocket launchers, very small, guys. Japan's not a real full power, operator. They got 4 helicopter carriers. Okay. 36 destroyers. Okay. 4 frigates. Whoops. 6 corvettes. 21 submarines. That's a definite serious threat to China. 6 patrol vessels, 22 mine warfare. Japan's not a major force. Now, South Korea. But they're not really able to do much because they're going to get hit by North Korea. And they're going to have to use everything they got to keep North Korea out of South Korea. And even then, I think they're going to lose. North Korea will get in. They may get killed and repelled, but I think they will penetrate into South Korea and cause a lot of trouble and damage. So the South Korea total military is pretty substantial. 1.1 million. Okay, that's getting substantial, let's put it that way, okay? Their aircraft, fighters, 402. Okay, that's something. Nice piece of fighters, nice bunch of fighters, no problem. Tankers, 4. Well, at least they got something. Attack helicopters, 112. Not a lot. Tanks, 2,300. Something. Not much. Self-propelled artillery, 3,090. That's a big hunk. They gave me some sort of a pop-up ad and messed it up here. Let's see if I can refresh and get away from that stinking advertising. Now I gotta go back again. I may have to reload it because I haven't really been doing that. It's something new. So they got some stuff, not a lot. All right, now we'll do their Navy. And not much of a surprise going on here. 2 helicopter carriers, okay, something. 13 destroyers, not much. 18 frigates, not much. 7 corvettes, 22 submarines, that's a threat. 14 mine warfare. Okay, so South Korea is going to really have to worry about North Korea. Japan said they'll come to the aid of Taiwan, and I believe they will do that. And it's, they got some power, but it's not that great. Okay, they're not that much of a powerhouse, and I'm not so sure they're going to be able to do that much. So that's the approach that Taiwan looks like they're taking. They're going to throw the China, they're going to throw the kitchen sink at Taiwan. And will Taiwan sustain and make it known? I don't think so. There's a small island, they can be surrounded. Naval vessels from China will be all over the island, pouring missiles. That obviously was one of our jets, because if it wasn't, it would have been going and smoking. Something's up. 3? Trouble in Syria, I'll bet, or Lebanon. Those boys were moving. They were not casually flying around. They were staying just under the sound barrier. They were probably running at about 700 miles an hour. When it's really bad, they'll break the sound barrier, but that's not so often. My most likely pick on that is trouble in Syria. It could also be Lebanon, but they normally don't fly over my head to get to Lebanon, but I don't know how many planes were coming from another area to Lebanon at the same time. I would call those F-16s. That was serious. That wasn't them just playing games to be, practicing. That was real. We'll hear about it. If it was South Syria, I would probably hearing explosions any minute now. If it's well into the interior and higher up in Syria, I won't hear it. If it's Lebanon, I won't hear anything. I'm not hearing about any red alerts, and I'm sure you guys heard the fighters, right? And they were hauling, okay? They were not just casually patrolling. This was, they were trying to get someplace real quick, and 3 of them. If it's Lebanon, it's a big deal. If it's Syria, it's not. There's revolutionary forces active in Syria now, trying to get rid of Bashar Assad. I would call that the CIA in action. Let them get rid of Bashar Assad, though. It's a good thing to get rid of that jerk. There's a big American coalition over there now, and in Syria, and they might have needed help. They might have asked for air support, and that could be it too. And Turkey's also operating in Syria and in Iraq. Would Israel go to help Turkey? I don't think so. I don't think Turkey would ask. Israel might go, but I don't think so. And I don't think Turkey would ask. So America might have asked. That could be one explanation. The other is trouble at Lebanon, and they will bring in jets in from different locations, so there might be as many as 12 jets being brought in on Lebanon. I don't know. Please note the jets have not yet returned, so whatever is going on is still going on. At those speeds, they would only be remaining in Israel airspace for seconds, a minute maybe, probably less. So they're operating somewhere, and I don't hear them coming back. So as you could tell, I'm a little concerned because this sounds real. But then on the other hand, I don't hear more jets taking off, and I don't hear our missiles flying. See, the enemies of Israel, Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and to some extent in Syria, the IRGC and the Syrians, they see what's happening in Israel to them as a symptom of Israel's divisiveness and weakness. Okay, so the Taiwan things looks like it's going to go pretty quick. We haven't seen America bring any large amount of naval ships there. They're not going to go that route. They're going to put submarines there, very few, but it's going to be enough. And that is a major nightmare for the Chinese because the American submarines are pretty darn good. And the American submarines can easily start taking out the naval vessels of China close up with torpedoes or at distance firing missiles from 40 feet under the surface, which I don't think China is going to be too slick at detecting. By the time they figure it out, the submarine could be, 2-3 miles away. So they can only shoot one missile at a time from beneath the surface. So they propelled the missile from 40 feet below up with air, compressed air, to break the surface. And when the missile breaks the surface, the real motor kicks in and it takes off. So they can only do one at a time. So maybe they can do 2 in a minute. So they could sit there maybe for 2 minutes and launch 4 missiles. Usually they have 16 tubes, and then they go deep. So they go from 40 feet under the surface to 300 or 500 feet. And then they start moving, and they go several miles away. And they lay in wait for a while because there could be airplanes loitering in the area looking for them. I'm hearing something. I don't know what I heard. I don't think it was the jets. And then they could, wait a half hour, an hour, and do another 3 or 4 missiles. Well, they got to be careful because if the planes are in the area and they get the coordinates of the launch, the planes have bombs and stuff that'll go down 40 feet like a depth charge and blow the submarine up. So they got to be careful. So maybe they wouldn't do that. They'd wait till they, 15, 20 miles away, 2 or 3 hours later, and pop up and do another 3 or 4 missiles. If they got the guts, they could go up on the surface and they could do a whole 16 tube missile barrage at their target and then dive and get out of there. But now they have no more missiles. But I think they could replenish the missile tubes from inside the submarine because they carry extra missiles. They usually carry 64, what would be the point of them having extra missiles if they can't reload them from inside? So they would stay under the surface and reload their tubes. Definitely go to a different position and then give them another 16, you know. Now, you got them trying to take ships out. They're not going to launch those 16 missiles. They'll launch 2, maybe 3 at a ship. But they might attack, you know, if there's 7 or 8 Chinese Navy vessels, they're going to be, you know, surrounding Taiwan, and submarines probably not going to attack all of them, they'll attack the ones it has the closest proximity to, so the flight time of the missiles is less, which makes it harder for the Navy vessel. And, you know, they're going to also be committed to understanding that they may not get all the ships, but they'll definitely get some of them, I would think. Then they could deploy drones too from a distance from a Navy ship. So what China needs to do is they need to work fast. They've got to put boots on the ground in Taiwan in a massive amount safely. They have to take out their airstrips, unless they conquer them, take out their radar, and have air dominance so they can keep the troops coming. So by the time the United States can get any kind of a response going of substance, they're going to have 100,000 soldiers dug in on the island of Taiwan, and that means it'll take years to get them out, unless you want to just send big bombers over there like B-52s and drop 800 or 900 bombs on the island, you know, big bombs, and create all kinds of damage all over the place, and that might work. But they're going to destroy Taiwan. But America could do something like that, you know. It might not be 800 or 900. It might only be 400 or 500 bombs. But I'm talking, you know, 250, 500-pound bombs, big boys, you know. And we might see this week. I don't know. I think that China's in a rush. Why? Because America woke up and is starting to transport a lot of good weapons over to Taiwan. Anti-ship missiles. So they shoot from the land of Taiwan and attack the Chinese vessels. Well, that's not making China very happy. And America's going to probably be bringing more and more of those. And then they're bringing good anti-aircraft systems in to protect against drones and planes. That's another thing China could do. They ordered 15,000 drones from Iran. When they get enough, they might deploy hundreds of drones into Taiwan to destroy their military infrastructure as well. So I think we're going to see this quicker because America is scaring China. The longer they wait, the more this goes on. And now we're seeing Russia bring their Navy over to the area near Japan and run exercises with China. So Russia's not using their Navy heavily in Ukraine. They're in the Black Sea, but they don't need a lot of boats there. So they got extra boats to share, so they're trying to help China out with that. And the way China will really get help is to have North Korea begin a massive artillery and missile and all kinds of barrages against the South Korea and destroying it as they go. And that is going to be a nightmare for America. And America is probably going to do a lot to try to defend South Korea. Now, they may, if Japan messes with them, which Japan says they will, and I have every reason to believe it, Japan will, they may attack Japan too. So them and North Korea will be fighting in three fronts: South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. America may try using aircraft against them, but I don't know what good that's going to do. Unless they just want to, blow everything up, which I don't think they want to do. They want to save those factories. America doesn't want to destroy those factories, and China does not want to destroy those factories. They want those factories. Both sides. Will Iran have a part to play in this? Nah, except maybe supplying drones to them and Russia. Now, Russia will continue with Ukraine, and I don't think Russia's crazy enough to start up with NATO right now. And Poland might actually be deploying troops into Ukraine to fight against Russia. Now, is that going to activate the NATO Article 5, all for one, one for all? No, I don't think so. Will Russia say it's an act of war? Oh, undoubtedly. But will they take action on it? No. No. Uh, Now, remember that this thing with the BRICS goes down next month, where they may actually absorb 40 or 50 countries into BRICS, and BRICS will very shortly turn into a NATO type military thing. That's where China and Russia and Iran they want to go. I don't believe India wants any part of that. I don't think they're that stupid. Brazil maybe is that stupid, but I don't think so either. So that's a ticking time bomb for America that America doesn't like. But America is afraid of losing their aircraft carriers, so they're not going to bring them over there. So that I don't know what America's going to do to counter Taiwan. Use planes, and what are they going to do? They could say an attack on Taiwan is an attack on America, therefore now we're at war with China, and start bombing China. Would that work? Oh yeah, China'd freak out. They'd forget about Taiwan in a heartbeat, but they'd certainly not forget about America, and they'd start trying to make, right away, Pearl Harbor would be one of the first places they'd go after. And they would start getting ready to invade America and attack America. Then I don't think Biden's going to be that quick to do a move like that. That's scary stuff. You know? Is he that stupid? Nah. I don't know how Russia could win against NATO, but look at Ukraine. Everybody would have said, how can Ukraine win against Russia? But, Blinken, the Secretary of State of America, says that as of yesterday, Ukraine got 50% of the territory back that Russia had claimed. Okay, what else is going on? So we got to wait and watch this and see what happens. I do believe that if China attacks Taiwan, Russia will attack NATO right about the same time. And this is going to weaken the nations, get them discombobulated, and allow the two witnesses to operate in Israel unhindered, because the world is going to have a lot of things on their plate for months without, they're just not going to deal with the two witnesses. Not that they can, but they're not going to try it. And that'll give the two witnesses a chance to set Israel up in a correct way with Jehovah, and be ready for them. When they do attack Israel in Zechariah 12, they get ready to attack and they lay siege on Israel. They get wiped out, of course, but the two witnesses, the judges, are already in power. So I think this is the general plan. To a great extent, the world will be at war. I don't know where the Caribbean nations and South and Central America are going to be in this yet, nor Africa, nor some African nations I can see, but some I don't understand. So, one of the nuclear-powered submarines, USS Annapolis, entered the South Korean naval base this morning. This Annapolis boat in South Korea, it's a Los Angeles class fast attack submarine. It's anti-ship and anti-submarine warfare. It's a potent weapon, and guys, even one of those is a hindrance to China, because one of them could easily sink a half a dozen ships, more. And I'm sure there's be more than one of them. I don't know. Those we have a lot of. America has a lot of, and those, it's unlikely they're going to lose. Or they may lose one or something, but it's pretty unlikely they're going to lose a lot of those. Very unlikely. Aircraft carriers are too vulnerable to swarm attacks. Not a submarine. How are you going to swarm attack a submarine? It's ridiculous. A Chinese Navy spy ship came around to Australia to monitor them during some of their practice exercises. So they're afraid of Australia getting into the fight, and they want to be prepared about that. The protesters this morning blocked all the entrances to the Knesset and were forcibly removed, and I could see this, putting it up on Telegram, shooting water cannons at them. And the vote apparently now is supposedly going to be this evening. So they're trying to reach a compromise before then. Wait. They're talking about freezing negotiations for 6 to 9 months. In other words, not passing it today, postponing it. That's a joke. So the protesters are saying this: we don't want any of these compromises. Postponement is not a compromise. It's just stupid. It's saying, well, we'll wait a few months till the protesters lose interest, and then we'll do it again. And they know that. Netanyahu may try to sell them on a 6 to 9 month delay and then break it, which is what he does. He lies. So that's Chief snoring. He's a happy boy. He's nice and cool, laying on the cold floor, snoring. 6 o'clock this morning, they detected 11 Chinese aircraft and 6 Chinese naval boats around Taiwan at 6 o'clock this morning. Guys, it's really heating up over there. China keeps surrounding them with different kinds of weapons, and they got these big ferry boats that can transport soldiers very easily, and it just one day these surrounding ships and all that will be there, and the next thing you know, they're going to be attacking. And they're going to attack Taiwan with anything and everything at the same time and go into a mad rush to occupy the place because they want those factories in one piece. So they want to put soldiers in there and take the factories over. Is America going to bomb the factories? No, they won't do that. See if there's any more updates going on here. The protesters have also chained themselves to the Knesset building. Well, I think that's what we got. I could take questions if anybody has questions. Heat in Texas is crazy. Yeah, the heat's all over the place. My thoughts with Israel and the heat, it says Jerusalem's the furnace of the Lord in the scriptures. But my thoughts on the heat is that this is the final punishment that could be coming on Israel before the two witnesses kick in. Once the two witnesses start operating openly, things in Israel are going to become extremely better fairly immediately. And the bad shepherds of Israel, the government and the rabbis, will be gone. Now, the rabbis are in the government in Israel. Shas party and United Torah Judaism are run by rabbis. So they're shepherds. You see the problem? It's a merger of the rabbinical stuff into the government. Got it? So it's definitely the government is the bad shepherds and rabbis. So when they go and the two witnesses run it, the ones that are going to be flourishing are basically going to be the poor people, the bent over, those that have nothing, that live week to week, month to month, you know. The guys with the Land Rovers and the nice Mercedes and the big houses, and they're not, you'll be living in their houses. Let's leave it at that. And you didn't build and you didn't buy, you ain't gonna have a mortgage. You'll be living there. And the believers are gonna be coming. The second Exodus itself isn't gonna happen until after Zechariah 12, when we get the land back and we got the room. That's how I see it, very plain as day. I don't think I'm wrong about that. So the believers will be here first, because we see in Zechariah 12, Jerusalem is loaded with believers. And there'll also be a lot of believers here in Israel. So, but the stopping believers from coming over here is not going to go on anymore. Now, I don't believe. But the Lord still has to green light you coming over here, and there's a time and a place for everything, so you got to watch the timing on this. But that's what I think is going to happen, and I think this heat wave is to punish the world, and it's happening in Israel to get probably the last of the punishments in Israel, because he's not leaving us altogether unpunished. So, why does it say he turns the hearts to the fathers and the fathers to the children? Well, the children, when they wake up, might be pretty peeved at the fathers, because they acted like morons and had the Romans kill, not the fathers, the older ones, and had them kill Yeshua, and brought all this horrific punishment on us. But their hearts got to be turned back towards each other. They can't be, running around saying, "Oh, please forgive me, my child. I'm sorry. Yeah, I should forgive you. Do you know what we went through? How many wars? How much terrorism? Bad, kind of blah blah blah." That's gonna have to stop. No more. Everybody got to be forgiving each other. The people that want to live in the past and remember the past and grind their axes, they're not going to be around anymore. They'll be gone, I think. The S-spots will certainly be gone. So things could get, because I think that when these wars break out, which in Jeremiah 30 are associated with the birth pangs, then that's going to allow the two witnesses to work without having to fend off the whole world, which would come on them for sure. All the nations are run by S-spots, and they'll come after Israel if they see Israel rising, or make Israel great again. They're not going to. That a long time ago. People are just starting to use that expression. If any of you come over here, you might be able to bum one of those hats off me if I still have them. If I still have one. So anyway, you can order your own on Amazon. Just have them, put in "Make Israel Great Again." There's a lot of companies that do it. You can get them not that expensive. Um, that's what I think is going on. So something's up. Let's wait and watch and see what develops. Okay, and. Things will happen suddenly and I believe all at once, coming all over the place, and it's going to throw the nations into serious confusion and unfortunately the church going world also. They're not of the same faith, believe me. I know you think they are, but they're not. There are real believers in there, I believe, and I also believe there's people in there that are going to switch to the real faith, but the bulk of them I don't think are. Broad and wide is the road to destruction, and many be that find it, and straight and narrow is the path, and few be that find it. So it's just going to be few. Okay, so thank you for praying for me and my wife, Rivka, Moshe and Rivka. Thank you for doing the spiritual warfare, because I know that we're under attack, the two of us. And it's a long, deep-seated attack, and you bind and loose and break and end that for us. And pray for our animals and pets to be happy, healthy, and whole with all rescues. Pray for our finances. Pray for more and better videos, and pray for the peace of Jerusalem. So I'm giving you the best I can as to what's going on, and it's really going on. And it should really go. It should, quickly. But I could be wrong and it could drag out, but I'm not aiming that direction. China's in a hurry now, Russia's in a hurry. Drone attack in Moscow is serious, Russia's got to react, Okay, I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I am out. Thank you.